Okay, students, we're going to go ahead and solve this quadratic. The reason I can solve it is because I have it set equal to 0. I have it an equal sign in it. If it did not have an equal sign, I would only factor it. Okay. If there was any of these terms on the right-hand side, I'd first move them to the left-hand side. I always want my ax squared to be positive. Okay. And then I write it in standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So it's degree 2, degree 1, degree 0. The constant term is always degree 0. So standard form means right from highest degree down. Okay. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So in this case, a equals 20, b equals 9, and c equals negative 18. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with quadratic formula this time, and then go to factoring, and then graphing calculator. Okay, so remember quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now let's go ahead and fill that in. Negative b is going to be negative 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared, 81, minus 4ac all over 2a. 2 times 20 is 40. Okay, so now we have negative 9 plus or minus the square root of, that's a negative times a negative is a positive, so 80. Or I can do 72 times 20. If I do that, 72 times 20, therefore is 144. 1440 plus 81 gives me 1521 all over 40. Now, if you didn't know 1521 was a perfect square, then you need to put in a graphing calculator or calculator and check. So I bring up the graphing calculator. Oops, start. Come on now, start, there we go. Come on, move down, there we go, start. Square root, calculator, and clear it and do square root of 1521. Enter, you see it's 39. Okay, so now this says negative 9 plus or minus 39 over 40. So do the top one, negative 39, or negative 9 plus 39 is 30 over 40, which reduces to 3/4. So there's one answer, 3/4. The other answer would be negative 9 minus 39 is negative 48 over 40. GCF would be 8, negative 6/5. Dividing each numerator denominator by 8. So here's my two answers, negative 6/5 and 3/4. That's using quadratic formula. You see all of that work there. Okay, now I'm going to do it by factoring. So let me go ahead and 20x squared plus 9x minus 18. Let's go ahead and do it on the next page. 20x squared plus 9x minus 18 equals 0. So remember, the first thing is it has to multiply to whatever a times c is. A times c, 20 times negative 18 is negative 360. And it must add to b, the middle term, which is positive 9. Go ahead and put your positive sign there so you make sure you count the right two numbers. So I need to look for when it's a negative, such as negative 360, that means I'm looking for two numbers that are this far apart from each other. Two numbers that are 9 apart from each other. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. And since I want the b to be positive, then the bigger of the two numbers is going to be a positive answer, and the smaller is going to be the negative one. Okay, so that should help you out. So I could start with 9 times 40. Okay, 9 times 40, but obviously that's not 9 away. But one reason that just quickly comes to mind. Now I can use that to come up with other numbers. I can take half of this number, 20, and double that number, 18. So 18 times 20 is another number, other two numbers that multiply to 360. I can take half of this one again and double that one. 36 times 10 also equals 360. If I'm going the wrong direction, that's 26 apart. The first one was 31 apart, then I got to 2 apart, but now I'm back up to 26 apart. And so if I did half of that and double, that's way further apart. Okay, so those combinations aren't going to work. But that, starting with that 9 times 40 gave me these other combinations that I was checking. Okay, so another one would be 6. 6 times 60. Okay, even though it's far apart, but 6 times 6 is 36. So I take half of that, 30, and double that. Take half of this. Oops, half of this is 15, and double that, 24. Well, now I look at that. What's the difference between 24 and 15? 9. And so my two numbers are going to be 24 and negative 15. Okay, 24 minus 15 is 9, and 24 times 15 is 360. Okay, so using the Carlson method, I can go right to the answer, the factored part of it. I know that these first two terms together have to multiply to 20x squared. So obviously it's going to have an x and x there, and the question is, what are the coefficients of those? Well, I have multiple combinations. I multiply to 20. 20 and 1, 10 and 2, 5 and 4. Those are my three combinations that will multiply to 20. I have to figure out which one of those three is going to be it. So remember, I am now asking myself, which of those combinations will multiply to these two right here? 24, negative 15. I always start with the biggest number because that usually doesn't work. Does 20 times some integer give me 24 or negative 15? No, so that's out. Next biggest is 10. Does 10 times an integer give me 24 or negative 15? No, so that's out. So the answer has to be 5 and 4. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15, and 4 times 6 is 24. So those work. So what I do is I draw two smiley faces connecting the first and the outer and the two inner. Okay, so 5 times what gives me the negative 15? Negative 3. And 4 times what gives me the positive 24? Positive 6. And so there's my factored answer right there. So now I go ahead, since I'm solving it, I set each factor, remember these are called factors, each quantity here is called a factor. Those are factors. You gotta know your terminology. Set each factor equal to 0. So I have 5x plus 6 equals 0. Subtract the 6 across, divide by 5, and I get negative 6/5. And the other one, start with 4x minus 3 equals 0. Add the 3 across, divide by 4, and I get x equals 3/4. The same two answers I had on the previous page. Okay, so that's by factoring. All right, now, lastly, we're going to do it by the graphing calculator. So I bring it back up, go to y equals, it was 20x squared plus 9x minus 18. Second equation is always 0. I set both sides. One side was the 20x squared plus 9x minus 18. The other side was 0. So there's my two. I'm trying to find where they intersect. So intersect is under second calc, which is the trace button. I find it in number 5, intersect. First curve I hit enter, second curve I hit enter, and whichever one I move this closer to is going to give me that answer. 0.75, and you should know 0.75 is 3/4, which as a fraction is 3/4. Okay, and I do it again to get the other one, number 5 again. Enter, enter. This time I move the cursor closer to the other one. The other, or those are called solutions, zeros, x-intercepts. Okay, and roots. Those are 4 possible answers. And here you see it's negative 1.2. Now, if you can leave it as negative 1.2, but if you want it as a fraction and you didn't know what that was, if I type in negative 1.2, hit enter, and now hit math, enter, enter, it changes the fraction for me, and it's negative 6/5. Of course, we had the other one of 3/4 already. So that's how you use a graphing calculator and solve both those. All right, 10 minutes.